next 5. Actually, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, can you have one microphone? Hare Krishna. Yeah, it's on. One more for the readers. 6 to 10. Yeah, microphone. 5 I just...
The transcendental supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal escapism, is the superior of all superiors and is busily engaged in the enjoyments of the transcendental realm and has no association with its mundane potency.
On.
Krishna never concerts with his illusory energy. Still her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastimes, in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency, Rama, by casting his glance at the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Rama Devi, the spiritual chit potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation, there appears a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Swamsha. This halo is divine Shambhu, the masculine symbol or manifested emblem of the Supreme Lord. This halo is the dimmed light, reflection of the supreme eternal effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of the divinity who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix, Niyati. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited, non-absolute apara potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of the perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord.
22. Text 9.
All offsprings of the consort of the great Lord Maheshwara of the mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane masculine and feminine generative organs. The person embodying the material causal principle, namely the great Lord of this mundane world, Maheshwara Shambhu, in the form of male generating organ, is joined to his female consort, the limited energy of Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by a subjective portion in the form of his glance.
Next 5.
Text 11.
Yeah, 11 to 15.
The Lord of the mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the source of thousands of avatars in his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayan in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. The subjective portion of Sankarshan, who abides in Paravyoma, the above supreme Purusha with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yog Nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshan existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. That is, they are the eternal universal soul Mahavishnu possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his two eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo.
Prabhu, you want to read? Continue. Okay.
Text 16. The function of Shambhu in relation to Jivas is that this universe enshrining the mundane egoistic principle has originated from Shambhu. Thereupon, the same great personal Godhead assumed the threefold forms of Vishnu, Prajapati and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, plays the pastimes of the preservation, creation and destruction of this world. This pastime is contained in the mundane world. Hence it is being perverted. The Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with the goddess Yoga Nidra the conscience of his own spiritual chit potency, full of ecstatic trance of eternal bliss, appertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Page 34, sir. Page 34.
Page 34.
Text
Text
19.
19.
Before their conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remained originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separate existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association of his own spiritual chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created these different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that he himself consorted with Yoga Nidra by way of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual chit potency. By conglomerating all these separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes and himself entered into the inmost races of every extended conglomerate, Virad Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during the cataclysm were awakened.
The same jiva is eternal and is for eternity and without a beginning joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an eternal kinship. He is transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls, and is the origin of four-faced Brahma versed in the four Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions, O Brahma, this mantra, namely, Kling Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Janna Vallabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled.
Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Shvetadvip, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals augmented by millions of filaments in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its wall there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute resonant with the divine sound with his lotus mouth. He is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, that is imparted by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself through his 8 ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of the twice-born, having been initiated by the supreme primal preceptor, Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn: I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, around whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with a moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending from Shyam Sundara is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, he is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potential remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord, whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Golok, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidantes, sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyam Sundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Ram, Narasimha, Vaman, etc., as his subjective portions. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, limitless truth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute substantive principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of the support of all existence, whose external potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, namely sattva, rajas, and tamas, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as the transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasa. Lowest of all is located Devi Dhama, mundane world. Next above it is Mahesh Dhama, abode of Mahesh. Above Mahesh Dhama is placed Hari Dhama, abode of Hari, and above them all is located Krishna's own realm named Goloka. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the rulers of those graded realms. The external potency, Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Just as milk is transformed into curd by the action of acids, but yet the effect curd is neither same as nor different from its cause, namely milk, so I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction.
The light of one candle being communicated to other candles, although it burns separately in them, is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who, assuming his own great subjective form, who bears the name of Shesha, replete with all accommodating potency and reposing in the causal ocean with the infinity of the world in the pores of his hair, enjoys creative sleep, Yoga Nidra. Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma creates his power for the regulation of the mundane world. Just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear the names of Suryakanta, etc. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds.
The three worlds are composed of the 9 elements, namely fire, earth, ether, water, air, direction, time, soul and mind. I adore the primordial Lord Govinda, from whom they originate, in whom they exist, and to whom they enter at the time of universal cataclysm. The sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is the eye of this world. I adore the primordial Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. I adore the primordial Lord Govinda, by whose conferred power are maintained the manifested potencies that are found to exist of all virtues, all vices, the Vedas, the penances, and all the jivas, from Brahma to the meanest insect. I adore the primordial Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion, and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities, of all those who walk in the path of work in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works. No less is the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indragopa than in that of Indra, the king of Devas. I adore the primordial Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation.
I worship that transcendental seat known as Shvetadvipa, where as loving consorts the Lakshmis in their unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every gate is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty, where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, where there is eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away, even for the space of half a moment. That realm known as Goloka, only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this science set forth in the following 5 shlokas. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service, bhakti, super excellent unalloyed devotion characterized by love for Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization, with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself.
Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of supreme service. Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed that is, the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am Pradhan, the substance of matter. I am Prakriti, material cause, and I am Purush, efficient cause. This fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman that inheres in you has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects.
Hare Krishna. Is there any verse that stuck in your mind as being something special or important? Actually, I'm reading the Brahma Samhita after a while, so when we visit some text after some time, the experiences that we gather in the meantime that help us to relate to the text in much more deeper and in a nicer way. So today's topic of discussion is on perspectives on modern science in light of the Vedic knowledge. So, and there could be no better way to start the day by reciting the Brahma Samhita, because actually the Brahma Samhita are these verses spoken by Lord Brahma. He is the creator within this material universe, empowered by Lord Krishna, and he, in essence, presents the science or the process of creation within this material world, and also acknowledges the fact that it's all his potencies he's deriving from the primeval Lord Govinda. And the Brahma Samhita concludes by specifying the process that is prescribed for the conditioned souls in the material world, of how by linking with the Supreme Lord in the mood of love and devotion, one can revive one's constitutional position. And that actually is the goal and the purpose, the very purpose of this material creation. So in one go, it encapsulates the entire philosophy and the entire science of Krishna consciousness. So the Brahma Samhita is really nice, and for those who are inclined towards philosophical understanding and try to understand in a systematic way, the Brahma Samhita offers actually all the answers. And the purports given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur are also very high and require deep contemplation and meditation on our part to realize these facts. So it's nice that we recite the Brahma Samhita every Saturday morning. Maybe there's just one verse of which I will read the purport of. The many nice verses. We'll go to verse 7. Mayaya ramamanasya naviyogastaya saha atmana ramaya reme tyakta kalam shishikshaya. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual chit potency Rama, by casting his glance at the deluding energy in the shape of sending his time energy, is an auxiliary activity. Purport: the illusory energy has no direct contact with Krishna, but has got indirect contact. Vishnu, the prime cause lying in the causal ocean, the plenary portion of Mahasankarshana, who has his seat in Mahavaikuntha, the sphere of Krishna's own extended transcendental pastimes, casts his glance toward the deluding energy. Even in casting his glance, he has no contact with the deluding energy, because the spiritual chit potency Rama then carries the function of his glance as his unpolluted, ever-submissive potency. The deluding energy, as the maidservant of the spiritual chit potency Rama, serves the manifested plenary portion of Godhead consorted with Rama, the time energy representing the force of activity and instrumentality of Rama. Hence there is found the process of masculinity or the creative force. So we'll connect more to this shloka throughout the discussion today. But the basic point here is that all the activities and functionalities in this material world are made possible by the divine energy of the Lord, who actually sets things in motion, but by himself is aloof from these activities. So the energy of the Lord is so nicely organized, and it's divine in nature that once it's set into motion, then he can stay aloof and things can go on without his direct involvement. That's why it's only because of this that it appears to those who are in ignorance that the world exists without the influence or the hand of God. So it's actually one of the deluding potencies of the Lord to make this impression possible in the conditioned souls. But the actual fact that we can gather from Vedic knowledge is that the Lord sets things into motion. He's the cause of all causes, but at the same time, He's aloof from the activities in this material world. So that's something nice to meditate on. Okay, so we'll sing one bhajan, and then the way I've thought of today's program is I'll read a few shlokas which are relevant, which are directly relevant to today's topic. One from Srimad Bhagavatam and a couple of verses from Bhagavad Gita, and then I have a presentation for about half an hour. So I think the whole thing will be about an hour or so. But we can sing one bhajan. I think usually we sing. Maybe you can play. I'll play the kartals. Mukharvan Prabhu can play kartal. He can also play. It's page 38 of the songbook, Udilo Aruna. Arunodaya Kirtan of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. उदिलो अरुण पूरब भागे द्विजमणि गौरामणि जागे उदिलो अरुण पूरब भागे द्विजमणि गौराम जागे भक्त समूहा लोइया साथे गेला नागर ब्राजे सामुहालोया साथे तथाई भज लखोल घन घन ताहे झांझेरा रोल तथाई भज लखोल घन घन ताहे झांझेरा रोल प्रेमे ढला ढला सोनार अंग चरण नूपुर बाजे मुकुंद माधव यादव हरि बोले न बोलो रे वदन भोरी मुकुंद माधव यादव हरि बोले न बोलो रे वदन भोरी बिचेनी देवशे गेलो रे राती दिवस शरीर साजे ए मन दुर्लभ मानव देहो पाय की करो भावन के हो एबे न भजिले यशोदा सूत चरमे पोरी बेलाजे उदित तपना होइले आस्था दिन गेलो बोली होइबे व्यस्त तबे के नो एबे आलस होय न भजरी दोय राजे जीवन अनित्या जनः सार ताहे नाना विधा विपद भार जीवन अनित्या जनः सार ताहे नाना विधा विपद भार नामश्रय कोरी जतने तुमी ताकह आपन काजे कोरी जतने तुमी ताकह आपन का जीवेर कल्याण साधन काम जगती आशिये मधुर नाम अविद्यातिमिर तपन रूपे हृद गगन विराजे कृष्ण नाम सुधा कोरिया पान जुड़ाओ भक्ति विनोद प्राण कृष्ण नाम सुधा कोरिया पान जुड़ाओ भक्ति विनोद प्राण नाम बिना किछु नाही को आरो 14 भुवन माजे नाम बिना किछु नाही को आरो 14 भुवन माजे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे जीव जागो गौरा चंद बोले जीव जागो गौरा चंद बोले कोता निद्रा जाओ माया पिशाची रकोले निद्रा जाओ माया पिशाची रको भजिबो बोलिया ऐसे संसार भितरे भूलिया रोहिली तुमी अविद्यार भरे रोहिले तुमी अविद्यार भरे तोमारे लोईते आमी होइनु अवतार लोईते आमी होइनु अवतार आमी विना बंधुआर के आचे तोमार बंधुआर एने ची औषधि माया नशीबारो लागी हरि नाम महामंत्र लाओ तुमी मागी महामंत्र लाओ तुमी मागी भक्ति विनोदा प्रभु चरणे परिया विनोदा प्रभु चरणे से हरि नाम मंत्र लोई लो मागिया नाम मंत्र लोई लो मागिया हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय शील भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय. Let's recite the Mangalacharan on page 10. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपादकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमा ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमा ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वतीति नामिने श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दयितय कृपाब्धये कृष्णसम्बन्धविज्ञानदायिने प्रभवे नमः माधुर्योज्ज्वलप्रेमाद्य श्रीरूपानुगभक्तिदा श्रीगौरकरुणाशक्तिविग्रहाय नमोऽस्तुते नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुगविरुद्धाप सिद्धान्तध्वान्तहारिणे नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षाद्वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्भरसाम्बोधे पादाम्बुजाय ते नमः नमो भक्तिविनोदाय सच्चिदानन्दनामिने गौरशक्तिस्वरूपाय रूपानुगवराय ते गौर आविर्भावभूमेस्त्वं निर्देष्टा सज्जनप्रियः वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्रीजगन्नाथाय ते नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम् हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते जयतां सुरतौ पङ्गोर्मम मन्दमतिर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदाम्भोजौ राधा मदनमोहनौ दिव्याद्वृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमदः श्रीमद्रत्नाकरसिंहासनस्थौ श्रीमद्राधा श्रीलगोविन्ददेवौ प्रेष्ठालीभिः सेव्यमानौ स्मरामि श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भी वंशीवटतटस्थितः कर्शन वेणुस्वनैर्गोपीर्गोपीनाथ श्रियैस्तु नः तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So we do not have Srimad Bhagavatams out, but maybe I can just read the verse and everyone can repeat once, and I'll just read the translation and purport. Or we can put it on the screen, yeah. But everyone has to turn around. That's okay. So this is first canto, chapter 5, and I think it's text... Just give me a minute, I'll find it. Yeah, it's text 22. First canto, chapter 5, text 22. So I selected this one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm sure everybody has read it before. So just because today's topic is on understanding perspectives on modern science, we just try to bring more focus to this verse and a couple of other verses from Bhagavad Gita. Idam hi pumsas tapasah shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayoho avicchuto artah kavibhi nirupito yad uttama shloka gunanu varnanam. Idam, this. He, certainly. Pumsaha, of everyone. Tapasaha, by dint of austerities. Shrutasya, by dint of study of the Vedas. Va, or. Svishtasya, sacrifice. Suktasya, spiritual education. Cha, and. Buddhi, culture of knowledge. Dattayoho, charity. Avicchutaha, infallible. Arthaha, interest. Kavibhihi, by the recognized learned person. Nirupitaha, concluded. Yat, what? Uttama shloka, the Lord who is described by choice poetry. Guna anuvarnanam, description of the transcendental qualities of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerity, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Purport. Human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being, Vishnu. The Shruti therefore directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Unfortunately, persons who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand that culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. Sri Narada Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of His different energies, because the Lord has set in motion by His inconceivable energy. the actions and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy, they rest on his energy, and after annihilation they merge into him. Nothing is therefore different from him, but at the same time the Lord is always different from them. When advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and His transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from Him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literators are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects. But if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly Vyasadeva is a great writer. And both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord, and by doing so have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also should be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also the same is affirmed. All, quote, knowledge, unquote, not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nations. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are factually Hari Kirtan or glorification of the Lord. So this is a very nice verse being spoken by Narad Muni to Vyasadeva. And in the purport, what Srila Prabhupada has referred to several times, that in human society we have this developed higher intellect, and as a natural consequence we want to develop or have a system of knowledge to understand ourselves and the world around us. But when that system of knowledge is not connected in one way or another to the service of the Lord, then it actually becomes useless. It is it doesn't serve the purpose for which the knowledge is being cultivated for. So the Srila Prabhupada stresses here that all branches or all endeavors of trying to acquire knowledge should be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. And what is that service? That service is basically glorification of the Lord. And this glorification is basically Hari Kirtan. The glorification of the Lord, in whichever form it comes, is Hari Kirtan, and it's purifying both for the speaker and for those who are able to come in touch with it. There's a couple of sentences I'll just read again, just to put more emphasis on it, and then we all can relate to that when I make the presentation. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science. So Srila Prabhupada recognizes that in this age, in the Kali Yuga, the Western philosophers and thinkers have come up with the system of knowledge called the science or modern science. We'll see that how the science actually works during the presentation. But he recognizes this the importance of this fact that people take science as authority, this methodology of acquiring knowledge. And therefore he suggests the later half of the sentence is mainly for the devotees. And therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. So he's referring to the devotees and asking them that all devotees are actually practicing scientists, because they are trying to understand the absolute ultimate truth, the origin of all and the cause of all causes. So, and he's asking us as scientists that as practicing devotees and in this age, we should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. On a scientific basis means in a manner that the philosophers or thinkers are able to accept it as a concrete principle. And similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. This sentence is extremely important. In the Pranam Mantra of Srila Prabhupada, we also have Nirveshesha Shunyavadi, Paschat Deshatarine. So Srila Prabhupada came, and in the Western world, he brought this idea, or this essence of all Vedic knowledge, which is that the absolute truth is a sentient personality. The absolute truth is not impersonal or something void. The modern educational system and the scientific worldview is actually full of voidism and impersonalism. It's actually, it epitomizes impersonalism and voidism in a very sophisticated manner. So this is something that we have to battle against, and as philosophers and as knowers of truth, we have to endeavor to establish that all kind of philosophical arguments should be used to establish that the supreme truth is sentient, he is a person, and that also he is all powerful. So this is the actual purpose of scientific arguments and scientific discussions, and we'll relate this ideology or this perspective to how the modern science is working on later during the presentation. So you can remember this verse and maybe read it again later sometime. It's chapter 1, text 5, verse 22. It's part of Narad Muni's instructions. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada has actually very scientifically presented to us the process of Krishna consciousness. And this is evident from his numerous purports that he has given in throughout all his books. Bhagavad Gita is like the preliminary study of the science of Krishna consciousness, and any practitioner of truth can get great insight and enlightenment just by reading the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, Srimad Bhagavatam is the next step of understanding the higher level of reality. But a level on which that everybody can relate to is present in the Bhagavad Gita in several verses. So I'll read a couple of them. I'll just read part of the purports, maybe not the whole thing. So this is chapter 7, text 4. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakrutir ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So, we are surrounded by material energy. So, the understanding of truth or understanding of God even, it starts with what is surrounding us. So, it basically starts with understanding of the material energy, how the material energy that surrounds us is acting. That is the beginning point of knowledge. So in this chapter of chapter 7, knowledge of the absolute, Krishna first explains how the matter is constituted. What is the constitution of matter? What are its different forms? And then he explains that above this material energy is a higher form of energy, and that's the jiva or the soul. So that spiritual energy is of a higher or a different form than material energy. So I'll go to the second paragraph in the purport to this verse, and just see how highly insightful and a deep remark that Srila Prabhupada makes in this purport. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical sound, touch, form, taste and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. Okay, so in one sentence, Srila Prabhupada has summarized what is material science. Material science is the understanding of matter. It comprises of understanding the interactions and workings of these 10 items and nothing more. Okay, remember this sentence, and again we'll come back to it during the presentation. Because the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence and false ego, are neglected by the materialists, but the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahat Tattva. Therefore, from 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya, atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies and are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. So not only Srila Prabhupada mentions what material science is, but he also mentions what the materialists who are trying to understand the material energy are missing. They are missing the more subtle forms of matter. They are missing the understanding of more subtle forms of matter, because of which they are unable to connect to the next level, which is to understand that there is something higher than matter, and that is the spiritual energy. And this material world is basically a combination of these material energies and the spiritual energy. So that's one verse which is very relevant to today's topic of discussion. And a couple of other verses from chapter 13. Would you like to have the Gitas, or is it okay just to hear? Akrunath Prabhu got one. Maybe you can just get couple of Gitas. It's nice to read together. So next we'll read chapter 13, go to chapter 13, verse 33. So chapter 13, nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. This is a very nice chapter. It basically, again, it addresses a lot of philosophical questions of 1333. Again, it addresses many questions about how the material nature works and how the living entities are a part of it. What the field of activities are, what knower of the field, what the nature of that knower of the field is, the knowledge and the knowable. These aspects are addressed in this chapter. So verse 33, Yatha sarvagatam saukshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatra vastito dehe tathatma nopalipyate. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. The air enters into water, mud, stool and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. It's a very bold statement. Okay, it's a very, very bold statement, and Srila Prabhupada exactly knows what he's talking about. By this one statement, he's challenging the entire scientific community, saying that all of you scientists, you cannot ascertain this simple fact that the spirit soul is, while being in the body, how he's in contact with the body, and how after its destruction is out of the body. Why? Because the nature of the soul is so subtle, is much more subtle than the mind and the intelligence and the ego, that it is not possible to understand with material eyes. So what does material eyes mean? Material eyes means not only just the gross eyes, but also the eyes through which, or the eyes of knowledge built upon the limited framework of the mind and the intelligence. So all the emergence of modern science is basically trying to try to look at the world with material eyes. So as long as we try to look around with material eyes, we cannot really understand the real nature of the spirit soul. So so he's highlighting this point that as long as science works in this fashion that it currently is, the real truth cannot be ascertained. So this is also very important statement. And we'll also read the next verse, because how by simple analogy we can understand very essential principles that modern science to this day is struggling to understand. Yatha prakashayatya ekah kritsnam lokam imam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Could one of you read the purports, and I'll set up the computer for the presentation? Maybe.
There are various
microphone.
There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or the light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter, it is a symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between the supreme consciousness and individual consciousness.
So those who are aware about consciousness studies in science must be knowing that this is a very hot topic, and also very less understood. People are trying to understand what is consciousness and what is the origin of consciousness, what its nature is, and how it affects the functioning of our body. But here, by simple example, the Lord is explaining how one can understand consciousness, and Srila Prabhupada is also explaining it in a very nice way. That consciousness, to think that consciousness is a product of combination of matter, is a wrong idea. He's throwing that idea out right away, and instead uses this example to say that actually the consciousness is a symptom of the presence of the soul within the body. So it's a complete change of perspective, and once you have this perspective of consciousness, then everything falls into place in a very nice way, in a very, very nice way. All of the mental and the intellectual activities, the activities of the body about how a living entity is born, how a living entity dies. Everything can be explained in a very nice way. But if one sticks to the idea that consciousness is a product of matter, then there is no way to solve some of the puzzles of for example, understanding how the living entity is born or what happens after death, and so on. So this change of paradigm of the way we think of the basic foundational principles on which the system of knowledge has to be built, unless those are corrected, it's very difficult to get out of this great maze that the so-called scientific knowledge has built around us to understand reality. So that's actually the purpose of today's presentation, and I just wanted to motivate this topic by highlighting these few key verses from Srila Prabhupada's purports, that Prabhupada is very, very aware of this problem that pervades modern society, that the traditional Vedic system of knowledge has been replaced by the modern scientific system of knowledge, and it pervades all of the educational institutions throughout the world. There is no exception whatsoever. So if we have to make a long-lasting and a far-reaching impact in modern society, then actually we have to make some valuable contribution in this area. Once we do that, whatever small effort or small contribution we can make, because the system is so widely spread and permeating through the whole of society, it will naturally influence all of these. It will naturally influence the society at large. So it's a very important subject matter for all of us to think about and to do something about it. Okay, so let's now go to the presentation. So I will walk over there and speak from there now, and everybody can turn around. So it's about 9:20. It will take about half an hour to 40 minutes. So the topic is Perspectives on Modern Science and Technology in Light of Ancient Vedic Wisdom. So as this topic is being discussed amongst devotees, I don't. We can all take the principles of like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam as fact and move forward from there. If I were to make the same presentation like to an outside group, then I may have to justify some of those principles being discussed. But here we will not do that. We'll just take them and move forward. So what is the purpose of this presentation? First and foremost is to actually increase our own faith in the process of Krishna consciousness. So as practicing devotees, we are also coming from different backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, and we have been exposed to the system of modern science and modern educational system. So we ourselves also need to understand everything in the right perspective. If there's anything that keeps us from fully reposing our faith in the process of devotional service, the modern system of education or scientific advancement is certainly one of the most important ones. If you make a survey of how many people believe in God or they believe in religious practices, that percentage of the population in the world has been declining quite rapidly ever since the emergence of modern scientific advancement. So it's certainly one factor that keeps people, that holds people back in placing their faith in God. Also, we need to understand everything in the right perspective, so that so that we can very nicely dovetail whatever we know and whatever we have based on our background in the service of the Lord. So it's not that modern science is completely needs to be thrown out of the window and nobody needs to discuss about it or talk about it ever, and we should just do our devotional activities in a nice way. So that kind of mentality can also be hurting in some cases. So when it comes to preaching, for example, so we ourselves also need to understand in the right perspective so that we can explain it to others. And to understand also these aspects, talking of preaching, that what scientific preaching is also something quite popular these days in the ISKCON community. So I try to share my own thoughts and realizations on what actually is scientific preaching, who can do it, and why is it needed. Okay, so background and relevance. So if we just think a little bit about how our modern day lifestyle is going on, is that at every step in our life, some aspect or other of the scientific development and technology is intimately connected in our lives. Like taking from the example of like small light bulb, we use electricity and light day in and day out. There's so many applications of technology, like transportation, like in agriculture, medicines, recently telecommunication, like iPhones and development of cellular phone technology, and the internet, without which it's very difficult to get past a day without being in touch with the internet, even for us. So all this is a development of the modern science and its applications. And here I give some equations. These are actually Maxwell's equations. The whole of telecommunication and electromagnetic waves and transformation of electromagnetic energy from one form to another, everything is encapsulated in these 4 equations. What we usually see is the front side of the effect of science. That means like we'll have nice cell phones and we'll use them, but we usually most of the times may not be aware of what actually goes behind in making these things. So just to give a perspective, that I'll come back to this point later in the presentation, that the entire system of knowledge is based on high development of mathematics. So natural question arises in our minds, especially as practicing devotees, that what is the meaning of all this? What is the relevance for us, and how are we to understand in the right perspective? Especially this question used to bother me a lot when I was new to Krishna consciousness, and because I was studying, I was doing my PhD, and at the same time I was getting interested in the process of devotional service. So natural question arises that I'm seeing 2 sides of the system of knowledge and different perspectives. How am I to reconcile, or how am I to understand everything in the right way? So just to give a background on what is science, what is the modern methodology of acquiring knowledge, that it starts with empirical observations. So we have our senses, we have the mind and intelligence. So we observe certain phenomena in nature, and because the inquisitiveness is present in all humans, we tend to ask the question that what is it that I am seeing, or why is such a thing happening, what is the cause behind it, and so on. So once you make observations, then there are some thought-provoking process takes place, and as a result of that, one forms certain hypotheses or theories, meaning that if we observe something in nature, then a thought can occur that it may be due to this. This may be the cause. So that's the beginning point of formation of a theory. And then, in order to validate it, one needs to do further experiments. One needs to do experiment with the idea whether this is correct or wrong. And then there is the interaction of these 3 principles. And when these principles interact with each other, then there will be some outcome out of it, and that outcome is basically some kind of knowledge of the working of the natural world. To give you an example, like this is a very famous example. Many people quote Newton saying that he saw an apple falling down from a tree. And then he started to think, why did it fall down? Why did it not just hang in the air or go upwards? Why did it come down to the ground? It's a good question to think about, right? And then that led to the theory of gravitation that he later proposed. So that's one example. So now this theory of gravitation, of understanding the revolution of the planets around the sun and so on, is very well established and accepted. So his thought-provoking process has led to this body of knowledge called gravitation. So that's example of how that works. So it doesn't stop there. So whatever body of knowledge it comes out of this process, it has to stand the test of explaining observable phenomena, and also it has to give some predictions that are not presently known. So that is what makes scientific theory valuable, that you have to tell something that is not currently known, and then it can be tested later through more experimentation, and this is how any theory gets established. Okay, so by this loop, the scientific knowledge expands, and then here I just mentioned that the basis of scientific knowledge is in making inquiries, and the inquiry comes from inquisitiveness, and that's innate to all, to the basic human nature. So then the question arises then, what is technology? That this process of understanding knowledge, then naturally once one has some body of knowledge, one will try to apply that to solve some practical problems. And when one does that, that comes out in the shape of various technologies. So iPhone and iPad, very famous example. There are so many other technologies like medical applications, and there are military applications, and so many things are there. So here I comment that technology is a natural consequence of the accumulation of this process of scientific knowledge. And it's just a small remark. Technologists usually have different personalities than scientists. They're trying to find out and know how things work, but technologists are more interested in not in finding out, but trying to use that for some advantage and to do something about it. Okay, so just to now give a little bit background about the emergence of the Western thought and philosophy. So about 3000 BC, close to that, which is about 5,000 years before now, there was the Mahabharata war, and the war was over at that time. So the kings and the other people who survived the war, some of them were remaining in the Indian subcontinent. Eventually, the kingdom was passed down to Maharaj Parikshit. And in the other provinces and other places, like in Europe and Russia and other places, there were other kings. But until the time of Maharaj Parikshit, everything was held under one ultimate king. But after Maharaj Parikshit, the entrance of Kali, gradually things started to change, and the provinces became more independent, and also eventually there was a gradual disconnection from the Vedic culture, which was prominent in the Indian subcontinent. So that's what I mentioned here. Gradual decline of connection to Vedic culture in these regions. And around 600 BC, there was this rise of the Greek civilization. So the Greek civilization is a very important phenomena in history, where the seed of the modern scientific and philosophical thought arose during this time in Greece. So if you look up on the internet and try to find out like who's like one of the prime persons who was responsible to bringing about this new way of understanding the world, you can look on Wikipedia and you'll see this person called as Thales. So he's around that time, around 600 BC, where this new thought, new system of understanding truth was beginning to emerge. Okay, if you look at, if you read about him, then it's described that he was actually one of the great 7 sages of Greece. Okay, so he's not like an ordinary person, but he's like was considered to be a sage. And sages in Greece were known for their wisdom. They used to advise the royal order, they used to advise the king, and they used to pursue intellectual inquiries in addition to a political career. They were maintained by the royal family. They didn't work to earn money, but they were maintained in return for the services that they gave. They took disciples and trained them. Okay, and they also believed in existence of the God and soul. So these more recent modern Western philosophers and thinkers were more or less like the Vedic sages. All the qualities or all the characteristics that I've explained here were exactly valid for all the Vedic sages or the Brahmanas as well. They used to be maintained by the royal order, they used to advise the kings, and they used to take disciples, train them in spiritual knowledge and so on. So although apparently there's no connection, but you see that the strength of Vedic civilization and culture was the practice was so strong that even after like more than 2,000 years, 2,500 years, the similar practice was there, but it had declined in the respect that there was no connection to Vedic scriptures. So although that culture to some extent was present, but the essential missing principle was that there was no connection to Vedic scriptures. And rather the Vedic script, the derivation of knowledge from scriptures was replaced by derivation of knowledge by one's own free thinking. Okay, and then as a result of this free thinking, what naturally happens is like what Thales did, that he rejected mythology. Like mythology refers to scriptures or the Puranas, where there are description of various gods and different explanations to natural phenomena. So he rejected that and sought rational explanations to natural phenomena. Rational explanation means that something that I am able to comprehend with my own mind and intelligence. So this was the beginning of the real decline, where the scriptures have been replaced by so-called rational explanations. But these rational explanations only mean that I'm looking for explanation that I can understand with my own limited capacity. So that's the key. So this particular point, that no connection to Vedic scriptures and free thinking, is very illuminating in this example of Thales about 600 BC. But now, if you talk to any scientist, or if you look at the way they work, then there's no way we can even make a connection that the point that missing in their practice is the connection to Vedic scriptures. But at that time, you could still make this difference. So who are these Western philosophers and thinkers? They are basically descendants of the Vedic sages. It's just that by the force of time, things move away from each other, and these civilizations that went away from the Indian subcontinent gradually got disconnected to the Vedic culture and system of knowledge, and they started to develop their own system. So they are descendants. If you look, they also look kind of similar. They used to have beards and stuff. So the prime difference is that knowledge was based on Vedic scriptures earlier, But now knowledge is based on independent and free thinking. So no connection to Vedic scriptures, that's the main thing. And then because of no connection, the ideas about God and soul are faint. It's not the idea of God and soul is not a concrete principle, but there are some faint ideas. But by the influence of time, that also gradually wanes. And they gave most importance to the understanding of the natural world, to the world around us. And during this time of the emergence of the Western philosophy and thought, the Vedic concepts and practice mainly remained within the Indian subcontinent. In other parts of the world, it basically gradually vanished. However, we can also still notice that, like a person like Thales made this important statement that the most difficult thing in life is to know yourself. So although they are disconnected, but they still have this impression that to know oneself is actually something important, and not only important, but it's also the most difficult thing. So they still carry some idea about it, but unfortunately, because they are disconnected to the scriptures, they are not able to contribute much to this fact. So modern science, some more thoughts on modern science. So starting from Thales, then there was Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. These are like the top figures or the most important figures who formed the idea of how to pursue scientific inquiries. So Aristotle was present about 300 BC, and for 1800 years, until the rise of modern science, more like modern science as we know it, in a more relevant manner to this current day and age. In the course of these 1800 years, for the most part, philosophy of the natural world remained unchanged during the Christian era. Of course, there was the appearance of Jesus Christ and the rise of the Christian community and the church. The influence of church was so strong that this inquiries, like free thinking and inquiries into the understanding of the natural world, were to a large extent suppressed under the influence of the church. So that remained unchanged for a very long time. And after that, there were some revolutionary thinkers who came along, and they started to change that scenario as well. So this is a picture of Galileo, who is actually now referred to as the father of modern science, because he revolted against the model of the universe or the model of the solar system, how it works. Earlier, it was thought that the Earth is the center and all the planets, including the sun, go around the Earth. But he found concrete evidence, experimental evidence, to prove the Copernicus' heliocentric model was actually undeniable, meaning that all the planets actually go around the sun and not around the Earth. So he had gathered astronomical evidence to prove this point, and that was the turning point of changing the domination of the church to give the understanding of reality. So, and he was also the first one to clearly state that the laws of nature are mathematical. So, and then came along Newton very soon, and he formed his theory of the laws of motion, which explained the motion of the planets around the sun, and also the theory of gravitation. So his main work was this mathematical principles of natural philosophy. So this actually created a scientific revolution in Europe during this time, and this revolution was basically marked by systematic mathematization of observable phenomena. So this mathematization is I just made this terminology, but what it refers to is that all observable phenomena have to be explained or understood in terms of some mathematical equation or some mathematical principle, which then basically becomes like a law. Like law of gravitation is like one equation. Like Kepler's law it refers to the rotation of the revolution of the planets around the sun, and so on. So this idea started to become kind of firm, that one has to understand, or by use of mathematics one can get a very concrete and good understanding of natural phenomena. And here what happened was the Aristotelian theory of matter was replaced with atomism or mechanical philosophy of matter. So for 1800 years Aristotle's worldview was valid, but after the emergence of the scientific revolution in Europe, the Aristotelian theories gradually start to be replaced. Now if you look at what is Aristotelian theory, so what he said was terrestrial matter is continuous and made of 4 elements: earth, water, fire and air, and heaven is made of the 5th element, ether. So that directly refers to Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu, Kham, Mano, Buddhir. Although he is missing the Kham, Mano, Buddhir, the 3 elements is missing, subtle elements is missing, but still, just see how strong the Vedic conception was, that even though people were disconnected for thousands of years, by their natural process of inquiry, they still came up with the 5 material elements. So that was the qualitative description of reality. But with the modern scientific revolution, that became replaced. So Galileo, the prime founders of this process, he has this very interesting quote. So I will not read the whole thing. You can also find it on Wikipedia if you search by Galileo. What he said is that this universe is written in the language of mathematics, and its characters are triangles, circles and other geometrical figures, without which it is humanly impossible to understand a single word of it. Without these, one is wandering around in a dark labyrinth. So his idea of the way he understood is that the universe is a book, and the book is written in the language of mathematics: circles, triangles, equations, and so on. So unless one is familiar with this language of mathematics, it is impossible to read this book of nature. Okay, so that's the idea that he brought to the forefront, and that replaced the earlier idea of qualitatively understanding natural world in terms of these 5 elements. So the modern philosophy of science that is basically can be encapsulated in this one statement, that nature can most accurately be described in terms of mathematical formulation of natural phenomena. So this mathematics has played a very, very important role in the development of modern science, and there are many examples. Okay, so what is the meaning of mathematics and other things? We can go into those details, but in the first presentation, I just want to highlight these main points. So in the most recent science, which is like in the past 150 years or so, I just give some examples with pictures. This is, everybody knows, Albert Einstein. This is Niels Bohr. He's the father of atomic theory. Then this is Heisenberg. He's a German physicist. He developed the important field of quantum mechanics. And more recently, very recently, this is Richard Feynman. He's a very famous American physicist. He developed quantum electrodynamics. It's basically in the past 150 years, what has happened is this continuation of the methodology of mathematical description of reality. If you read any of the publications of any of these scientists, there'll be words to describe what they are thinking, but it's also heavily it heavily involves a lot of mathematics. So, but one has to give due credit to these people, because what they have come up with is not just some hocus pocus. It has some validity and some substance to it. Why? Because it offers the best explanation for empirically observable phenomena in matter. If you were to do any experiment, as these scientists and other people do, then one can notice that the laws that these people have come up with, it's kind of some mystical thing. It's like yogis do mystical things, right? They can take a dip in Gangotri and then rise somewhere else. So they do some mystical things, very hard to understand. So same way, these people are in some way empowered again by the Supreme Lord, and they do mystical things. Like in one equation, they will explain the whole thing. One equation is enough to explain a whole range of experimentally observable phenomena. So some due credit is there, but and the way this has permeated through the whole of society, is because of the interface of technology. So like in 1920s or so, when quantum mechanics and was new, the topics of discussion was limited to few elite people in the top scientific circles. But nowadays, if you see that everybody is talking about quantum mechanics, everybody is talking about physics and so on. The reason for that is that starting from physics, the scientific methodology has made a deep impact in society through the agency of technology. So, for example, in 1947, the three physicists at Bell Labs who invented the semiconductor transistor. There's an image which shows that it's a small transistor is encapsulated in that chamber, and the transistor, as we know, is the heart of all electronics today. All high-speed electronics, everything is based on semiconductor technology. And I always like to give the example of iPhone. So in the past 50 to 60 years, especially since World War II, where there was rapid development of technology, it has had a very deep impact in society at large. So this point is actually important, that wide success of technological applications, which basically validates the scientific knowledge, what it does is that, knowingly or unknowingly, it makes the scientific paradigm practically unquestionable, right? So for those who are exposed to this, the whole range of science, if they do not have an alternative, they have no choice but to take it as the ultimate. Even if we think about ourselves, that before we came to Krishna consciousness, many of us have some scientific background and educational in like colleges and universities. So at no point we questioned those things, right? I didn't question anything. I just took that this is the way to understand reality. This is it. So, but there is some frustration. There's some hidden like lack of satisfaction and things like that. But there's nothing concrete. There's no basis to challenge it. So unless one is exposed to a better alternative, this actually remains true for majority of the population. So and we should know this fact, that how deep the influence of modern science is in society at large, because it's very relevant for our preaching activities as well. So unless we are equipped or we are powered with the answers to many of the questions that arise in relation to this topic, it's difficult to convince people, especially young people in colleges and universities. So now, let's come to the actual point. So this is just the background to motivate the relevance of this topic. But as devotees, as practitioners of Krishna consciousness, what is our understanding? What is the fundamental problem of modern science? Even though there is so much practical success and so on. So before we go to the identifying the fundamental problem, we need to understand that the expanse and the limitations of any system of knowledge is basically directly impacted or is directly influenced by the axioms on which it is based and the methodology it undertakes. It's like saying that the foundation of a house is extremely important for the good, like for the good maintenance of the house, right? Although you cannot see the foundation anymore once the house is there, but it's the foundation which makes the house last long. So same way, the axioms or the starting point of the scientific theory, the foundation is extremely important, because that foundation, it directly guides or it directs how that system of knowledge is going to develop. So axioms are supposedly unquestionable but reasonable assumptions on whose foundation the knowledge is built. The success of any system of knowledge is basically comes out in the form of the how good it can explain natural phenomena, and once it is successful in doing so, then the axioms nobody questions at a later point. So, but the axioms are basically form the core principle. So modern science is an attempt to understand the natural world by assuming that matter is all that there is to know about. This implicit assumption goes into all of modern science and practice, starting with Thales. So we saw that example. Because of no connection to Vedic scriptures and free thinking, one thinks that one needs to explain phenomena in a rational manner, and since we are all surrounded by matter all the time, so we just think that matter is all that there is to know. So it's an assumption, it cannot be proven. So if we want to attack science, attack meaning if you want to challenge science, one actually needs to go to this root and question that you are assuming that matter is all that there is to know, and with this idea you're trying to find out knowledge or trying to develop knowledge, but this point cannot be proven. It is just an assumption. And the methodology that is adopted to supplement theory or to form theories is basically empirical evidence. So something that I can test and verify in the lab by using my own senses, an extension of the senses which come in the form of various devices and instruments. So it has to be validated by these kind of empirical evidence. So this is the fundamental problem of modern science, that the axiomatic truth and methodology that pervades all science leaves no possibility to the fact that life can be of a different nature than matter. So this possibility is not open currently in the whole system of science. That is the fundamental problem. So unless we make a room to enter this, to have some room for this idea to enter, that life can actually be of a fundamentally different nature than matter, until then the way the modern science is working is very difficult to change. Okay, but not only that, there is no room or the possibility to understand that life is different than matter. On the contrary, science, because of its nature, is trying to explain life in terms of combination of matter. So it's actually not only it's not only the starting point is wrong, but it's also headed in the wrong direction. So it's like saying that if you want to go to Los Angeles, then you start here and then head south. So not only do I start at the wrong point, but I also head in the wrong direction. So there's no way I'll ever reach Los Angeles. So it's something like that. So that's the problem. So in other words, the modern science by its very nature is atheistic. So to put it in simple layman's words, that the methodology of modern science basically says that let's assume there is no God and let's try to find out some knowledge. So that's what basically the modern scientists or modern philosophers or thinkers are doing. Let's say there is no God. Let's say life is nothing but matter. Now let's start building our system of knowledge. So the very starting point is wrong. And the methodology or the direction in which one is moving is also wrong. So that's the fundamental problem. But not only that, if one looks at the technology side of it, the technology is enamoring for the whole world right now. But one has to keep things in perspective by noticing that every scientific advancement that has translated into tangible technology has had a negative side effect to human health and or Mother Earth. So it basically it appears to solve one problem, but it definitely creates at least one new, if not many. And as devotees, because we are accustomed to the scriptures and the knowledge therein, we can understand that the fundamental reason behind this is that the activity that goes into the development of science and technology, it actually falls under vikarma. So in chapter 4, which we are reading this month, Krishna explains karma, akarma and vikarma, right? So this is actually a very important realization that most of it, actually all of it falls under vikarma. It's like forbidden activities according to the Vedic conception. And that's why whatever we try to do, doesn't matter, good intention, bad intention, we're trying to solve some problem, try to invent so many medicines or to counteract diseases or so many things we're trying to do, but it's never going to work. Why? Because it falls under the category of vikarma. So there's bound to be some adverse reaction to every action that one takes. So the other side of technology is also very important for us to understand and realize. So as devotees, we should, we are bound up in the current like social setup and framework. We cannot let go of using technology, but we should realize this fact that what we're dealing with, what we are in touch with. So otherwise, we can also, to some extent, get implicated by these vikarma kind of activities. So on the other hand, so we understood about the methodology of modern science, but on the other hand, what is the Vedic approach to understand reality? So I mentioned that the fundamental problem is the starting point, right? And the direction in which one goes with science. So the Vedic version starts with a completely different starting point. What does Vedic conception start with? Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Right? What that means is that life is of the nature of Brahman. And Brahman is something superior to matter. Again, this point is like an axiom. It's not something to be proven, but you just take it. It's a starting point. The starting point cannot be proven, and it's unreasonable to ask somebody to prove the starting point. But one can judge the quality or the validity of the starting point by the results that you get with that, by starting from there. So the Vedic conception starts by saying that life is of a fundamentally different nature than matter. It's of the nature of Brahman. So it's not only different, but it's actually exactly the opposite. The starting point is exactly the opposite of that of modern science. And then Vedic knowledge, as we know, progresses to explain individual living entities as part of the Supreme Spirit. And that matter is nothing but one of his inferior energies. Vedic knowledge is extremely scientific. Nothing is dogmatic or nothing is based on blind faith. There is some amount of faith involved, but that is true for any system of knowledge. Even in modern science, one has to place some faith in the axioms one starts with. So there's some faith involved, but the whole system of knowledge is extremely scientific, and one can undergo this process to realize this knowledge. And most importantly, that if we go out and tell these things to others, then especially to scientists, they will criticize us by saying that, you are talking of all these high things, but you do not have an explanation to understanding of matter. And actually that is not true. The Vedic system of knowledge, it gives a comprehensive and the necessary perfect understanding of matter. And the purpose of that is to enable our liberation from the clutches of matter. So to enable the liberation of conditioned souls from clutches of matter by which we are surrounded with, the understanding of matter is given. Unless one understands matter, how can we disassociate with it? It's not possible, right? So that's the purpose. So understanding of matter is given, but not in the way that the modern scientists want to understand. Modern scientists, the thinking for them is more of the nature of exploitation, because I want to understand and I want to be the master of this explanation. That kind of attitude doesn't work when trying to understand matter through the Vedic conception. So when we talk to people and say that when people accuse us that you guys don't understand matter, then we should actually explain them that they are thinking wrongly. We actually have a very good understanding of matter, and it even serves the actual purpose of this whole material manifestation. And then this knowledge, so the body of knowledge is already present in the Vedic scriptures. It's not that we have to do research and invent and undergo a lot of struggle to find out this knowledge. The knowledge is already there. But what one needs to search is of a qualified, realized teacher who can impart the instructions by which we can realize it ourselves. So it's like any verse in Bhagavad Gita, like we understood that the consciousness is like sunlight, right? When the sun is present, it permeates sunlight throughout the universe. Like the soul, similarly, the soul permeates consciousness throughout the body. So this is a good starting point and good theoretical principle, but one needs to realize this in one's own life. And that is made possible by association of one who is advanced in the system of knowledge, and that's the Guru, right? So we need to take shelter of Guru and we can realize this. And Vedic system is also not devoid of technology. We have very high-end technology, right? It sounds very simple, even kind of outdated or things like that. But actually, if you analyze and try to see in the right perspective, then this is actually the best technology. Why? Because it enables a good livelihood. It like examples like using cow dung as fuel, Ayurveda for healthcare, and there are many other examples. This technology actually serves the purpose of sustaining our bodies in a nice way, to live nicely, to live a healthy life, and then focus on the actual goal of human life, which is cultivation of spiritual knowledge. So it's not a fact that Vedic knowledge is devoid of technology, but it comprises of technology which is actually needed to serve the purpose of life. It doesn't involve manufacturing or making fancy iPhones or things like that, but it enables us, it helps us to meet our essential needs in life. So to summarize, the difference between like modern scientific worldview and Vedic wisdom is that the Vedic worldview gives a complete understanding of reality, which is life, which is spirit plus matter, both. Okay, that is what comprises reality. And the scientific worldview, because of its very nature, they focus only on matter, trying to understand matter. Because they miss out on the essential ingredient, which is life or spirit, they are basically the knowledge that they're trying to develop is basically a reflection of reality. It's not actual understanding of reality, but it's only a reflection of reality. And what creates a reflection? Something like a mirror can create a reflection. So there is some fine line which differentiates actual reality from its reflection. And here I am just presenting it as a dotted line. And if we ask the question, what is this? What is this dotted line which creates this reflection of reality? This dotted line is nothing but the inconceivable nature of the Lord's own deluding potency. So by nature, this material world is created for conditioned souls to give them a chance to forget Krishna, right? Forget their own source. And that is made possible by the deluding potency of the Lord. So this system of knowledge, which has no room for explanation of life or no room for presence of God, is made possible by Krishna's own deluding potency. So Krishna is present in everyone's heart, including the heart of the scientist. So when they are trying very hard to find explanation to natural phenomena which does not involve any kind of God, then he gives them intelligence to come up with these theories to make it possible. It's not that he wants it, but these souls are trying so hard, laboring so hard to find an explanation that sometimes he just gives something. Okay, so over a period of time this accumulates and comes out as this scientific knowledge, but it's actually a reflection of actual reality. So to summarize, like if we put all these things in perspective, so what that means is modern scientific knowledge, in the name of knowledge, is actually an expansion of illusion or ignorance. So this also is a very, you'll find such statements also in Srila Prabhupada's purports. It's actually again a very bold statement to stand up and say in front of scientists that actually you guys are thinking you're having knowledge, but all your knowledge is expansion of illusion or ignorance. Right? There's a verse in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Right? Srila Prabhupada writes a long purport saying that all these scientists, they're thinking that they are in knowledge, but actually their knowledge is taken away by Maya. So they are in Maya basically. So that's what the real perspective is. And this is not surprising if we think about it. It's not surprising. The analogy is exactly identical to the difference between the spiritual world and the material world. The spiritual world is actual reality, or is the real world. Real in the sense that this is the place where real happiness, eternality can be experienced. But a reflection of it is present in the material world. We think that there is some source of happiness, we can be happy, and we are also endeavoring to kind of be immortal, try not to die in this world. So the material world is like the reflection of the spiritual world. And again, what is this? This reflection is made possible by the deluding energy of the Lord or Maya. So the analogy is exactly identical. So like in spiritual world is actual reality, and the system of knowledge to go there is actual knowledge, but the knowledge that keeps one bound to the illusory or the reflection is basically also a reflection of real knowledge. So with the understanding of principles from Krishna consciousness, we can actually put everything into right perspective, and it is very helpful even for our own personal practice, because we don't have to be so much like being afraid or apprehensive of this, modern scientific advancement and be, like overpowered by it or so on. So because of this understanding, it is justified to say that modern scientific knowledge is nothing but an expansion of illusion or ignorance. So there are many questions that come about in these topics of discussion. For example, is modern science bad? Okay, so it's kind of difficult to answer, but if we if we want to answer it in the absolute perspective of what Vedic conception has to offer, then actually modern science is bad. Why? Because in the name of knowledge, it's actually it's expanding our ignorance or illusion and keeping us away from the actual reality. So in that sense, it's modern science is bad, and we have to safeguard our own faith against this influence, and we also have to protect to as much extent as possible the faith of people around us, to not put your faith in the wrong place. Put it in modern science, then you basically end up in frustration and end up dying while serving no purpose. So one has to understand that. This is a very important one. Are scientific theories not real? After all, they seem to work and appear to be real, right? So how do we answer that question if somebody asks us? So the best answer that I think can come up with, you can feel free to contribute your ideas, is that the very nature or the very definition of illusion is that it's illusion because it works, right? If illusion didn't work, then it's not illusion. Just like a dream, we are in a dream. While dreaming, we are thinking we are something and we are doing something. Unless that experience is real, how can dream be real, right? The fact that dream is real means that experience is real. But once you wake up, then you understand that that was something. It was just some illusory, transient thing. It's not the actual fact. So similarly, the scientific theories, they appear to be real, and if you were to test them, you'll get the results that are expected. But it's the same thing as identifying oneself with the body. So thinking that I am this body is a real experience, right? We all feel that, we all experience that, but that's not the ultimate thing. So from all our Vedic scriptures, we're trying to understand that we are spirit souls different from the body. But nevertheless, the experience that I am this body, this illusion, is also real. So by training ourselves in transcendental knowledge, we can come out of this illusory experience or illusory reality. So same way, the scientific theories, it seems to be real, but once one is enlightened with Vedic knowledge, with transcendental knowledge, one can see the actual merit of these scientific theories. So it actually becomes, after some point, it just becomes irrelevant. It's not about real or unreal; it just becomes irrelevant because that's the way it is. So the another question that comes is, science has enabled so many wonderful technological advancements. So what about all that? So sometimes it's very difficult to argue against this point that science has given us so many nice technologies, so many comforts, it's solved problems of life. What about all that? So again, we have to put things in the right perspective. So unless we know what the goal of life is, what the purpose of human life is, the question can be misleading. So we have to explain that yes, science has enabled many technologies, and we're using them. That's very good, but it's still not addressing the actual problems of life. The actual problems of life are birth, death, old age, and disease, and nobody has found or will ever find with this system a solution to death, right? But with Vedic conception and transcendental knowledge, we have a solution to death. It's in some sense, it's very simple to realize that we are not, we are eternal. We are eternal spirit souls, not identical to the body. So although it offers technology, we should not be enamored by it, and we can do that only when we ourselves realize the higher purpose and the importance of human life. Are scientists bad people? Why do they have such prominent position in society? To answer second one first, because they have actually practically taken the place of the Brahmanas. So Brahmanas have the prominent position in society because they are the intellectual class. So they guide basically the civilization, they guide the society, they guide the administrators. So naturally they have prominent position, and even now scientists are in that position, like the Scientific Advisory Committee to the President of United States are basically all top scientists. So they have naturally prominent position. So are scientists bad people? Well, if you talk to them personally, need not be. They are just like you and me. They have their personality, they have their characteristics, likes and dislikes, and so on. Not necessarily they're bad people, but they have strong faith and adherence to this system of knowledge, of empirical knowledge, and it's very hard for us to bring them out of it. Since they are in the leading position of leading the society, so in some sense they're kind of doing disservice, right? Because by leading people in the wrong direction. So as devotees, and when we preach, so we have to keep this in mind. And just like when we go out on book distribution, like if somebody is behaving strangely, we don't tell them directly on face that you're behaving strangely, but we try to explain them nicely. Same way, the scientists, they are misdirected themselves and misdirecting others. So we have to put a lot of effort to make them understand, or try to make them understand the Vedic conception, the Vedic understanding of reality, and what it has to offer to modern society. Okay, few more. Can we or should we give up use of technology because of what we heard today? No, you don't have to. And even if you want to, it's very difficult, right? Day in and day out, we cannot live without computer these days. So what should be our attitude towards interfacing with technology? Are we hypocrites? On one side, we are kind of criticizing or saying that, it's creating so many adverse conditions, and we have a higher system of knowledge, but still using these things. So the easiest or simplest way to understand that is like one uses simple things like earthen pot, right? Earthen pot to store water. So the earthen pot is also technology. It's maybe a basic level of technology, but one is not attached to the earthen pot. One is really one has direct more relevance to the water that is stored in the earthen pot, and you use that water for drinking. And as long as your pot is serving that purpose, that is all what matters. So in use of technology, the purpose behind it is what matters. So if we are in a situation where technology use is required for our service and for our activities, then it's, as long as it serves the purpose, that's good enough. But if we become unduly attached to the technology itself and try to use it for our sense gratification, then that's dangerous. Especially we see that these days children are very much attached to iPhones and iPads and all these things, and they are just playing games. So that kind of thing can be dangerous, right, in the long term. So we also need to educate our children about these things. Oh, that was my last question. What should we tell our children about science? We should tell them the fact. It's not that we have to stop them from going to schools or not teach them about modern science, but we have to tell them that this is what modern science is and this is what Vedic conception has to offer. So you should understand in the right perspective. And in that way, we can actually empower them. So they are no longer afraid, or we are not afraid that they'll go in the wrong direction. But we have to empower them so that in future, they themselves can, come around and also explain it and preach to others. So, okay, what is scientific preaching? This is my last slide. So first, what it is not. It is not blind criticism of science and scientists, because Srila Prabhupada did so. Prabhupada also criticized science and scientists, but if we read his books, like today's purports we read, He's actually giving a very scientific explanation and saying that you scientists have an inferior or a worse explanation to the same phenomena. That's why you are worse. That's why you're bad and you're misdirecting people. So it's very logical and very meaningful criticism of science. So blind criticism is not scientific preaching. It's not encouraged. Then is it to understand modern science, to understand how it works and to point out its problems? Well, that's part of it, but that's not really what scientific preaching is. What scientific preaching is to present Krishna consciousness as a science, not as some dogmatic thing, not as some religious practice, ritual, or things like that. Sometimes we ourselves can be inclined to give such explanations to others when we are preaching. But actually to present Krishna consciousness as a concrete scientific principle, that is scientific preaching. And everybody can do it to the extent that one is enabled to. Everybody can do it. And pointing out defects of the approach of modern science will be a natural part of presenting Krishna consciousness as a science. So that will just go unsaid. So we don't have to really put too much attention on that, but prime focus should be on the presentation of Krishna consciousness. And going back to the verse that we read from Srimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada explains that when all that we have can be used in glorifying the Lord, then that's actually Hari Kirtan. So the scientific preaching, presenting Krishna consciousness as a science, and at the same time pointing out defects of modern science, all this is Hari Kirtan. And if you do it in a nice way, it can have a very good and lasting impact in society. Okay, last but not the least, few acknowledgements. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, by whose inspiration we are all here today, and by whose presentation we are also be able to understand everything in a nice way. His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Swami, although I have never met him personally, I've read several of his books, and as you all know, he was a prominent personality in ISKCON, and he was the first director of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. Had very personal interaction with Srila Prabhupada, and he did a lot of scientific preaching, both in India and the Western world. My spiritual master, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, he always inspires me to do this kind of activity, and also encourages me to engage in service that I'm personally like to do and am interested in. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, because he's the one who inspired us to do this seminar, and he naturally realizes the importance of it and wants us to invest more time and systematic thought into in making such presentations. And Hari Guru Prabhu also, because I've benefited from a lot of interactions with him, although he's not there today. Thank you very much. Sorry, I think it went pretty long, but if you have any questions.
Message. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for a wonderful, wonderful class. I'm glad that I came here to attend. There's actually a text message from Gandharvika Mataji. Oh. She's watching you online. So I'm just reading. A wonderful class, Prabhu. Was unable to share points over the phone. I think it's not working. And she'll talk to you later. It's an art to present this one. One devotee who was serving Srila Prabhupada was not able to accept Srila Prabhupada's denial of moon landing. He just wanted to leave the movement. Prabhupada gave money for his one-way trip and asked him to send the money back once he reached the moon. This way it is better we have a deep understanding of science from Krishna consciousness perspective. Otherwise may we be attracted by Maya's various alluring inventions. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice comment. Yes, Prabhuji. Microphone for Pranam Prabhu.
You explained in the beginning of the lecture that science works on the basis of empirical observation and hypothesis, experimentation, and leads to predictions that can also be confirmed by further experimentation,
Right.
and that this is the method, and that it doesn't accept authority of Vedic scriptures, but seeks rational explanation that doesn't involve submission and service and so forth, and mood. But then at the end of the lecture you said that we are supposed to present Krishna consciousness as science. So my question is, how does this science relate to that science? Or can we, in the Srimad Bhagavatam purport, Srila Prabhupada said a great scientist should prove the glories of God. But how can it be considered science if it doesn't follow the methodology of the science?
Oh, so what I mean by that is that modern science has this methodology. So I'm not saying that we should. I don't mean to say that we should follow that methodology. Actually, we cannot follow that methodology in our discipline. But what I meant is that we have to present the philosophy and practice of Krishna consciousness in a systematic and a scientific manner. Not necessarily follow the methodology, but we have to observe some discipline and present it in a tangible manner by which people can willingly accept it. So our science is different than the other science, but nevertheless it's a science. So the definition of science is not necessarily that follows the modern scientific methodology, but systematic body of knowledge presented in a definitive manner, that is science. And our methodology is different, our starting point is different, our source is different, but the presentation can be scientific.
So it has to appeal to their reason, it has to appeal to but does it have to show empirical predictions and observations that they can be observed with experiments?
No, not necessarily. So actually the demand to prove something by empirical observations is actually misleading. And this also has to be pointed out in our presentation. But it is not, at the same time, it's not devoid of any kind of empirical evidence. The empirical evidence, quote unquote, comes in the form of realization when one practices this process given by the Vedic scriptures. In the 9th chapter, Lord Krishna says, right, this is the king of all knowledge, and it has to be realized by practical experience. So empirical evidence will come in that form, not in the form that we are habituated to looking for.
There's some nice verses in the 15th chapter, I think it's verse 9 and 10 or 8, 9 and 10, something like that. But it says that one who's actually a yogi can actually perceive how the soul is going from one body to another and what kind of body it will take, but that one who's not practiced, and even some endeavoring transcendentalists who aren't expert, they can't actually perceive how it's taking place, what kind of body he's going to acquire according to the modes of nature and so forth.
So actually that's a very good example to give when we are presenting Krishna consciousness as a science, that as a result of this science that one will be able to perceive or see these things. One will be actually able to see oneself as a spirit soul and others as a spirit soul, and one in very advanced stages one can notice what kind of body this soul is going to get after this life and so on. So these are some scientific, like practical realizations one can have when one follows this system of knowledge. So by, I don't mean that we have to follow their methodology to present our science, but our methodology and our techniques to present the science of Krishna consciousness. So it's a science. It's a science of understanding reality, science of understanding God. So it's a systematic body of knowledge. That's what constitutes science.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the class, Prabhu. the point that you mentioned about the starting point of science, not only the starting point, but the direction in which it is headed. So, like both, they don't have any reference to the Supreme Lord. So that was a nice point. So I had a question. So you were mentioning about the Greek civilization, and so the gods and goddesses, those are mentioned in the Greek civilization. So do they have some? Do they derive something from the Vedic civilization? Because as you said, the Vedic civilization, or after Parikshit Maharaj, it was kind of divided. So because people try to derive parallels among them. So yeah, is there any evidence?
Actually, the reference to those gods in the Greek civilization is basically referring to different demigods.
Okay.
Like they have gods of fire, god of rain, and such concepts. Even to this day, some portions in Europe and in Latin America, they have such concepts, and they also have some forms or idols, deity forms of these gods, and they do some worship and so on.
Okay, so they didn't just mentally speculate something.
No, these are like remaining remnants of the Vedic conception, and they assumed some different names or different details may be different, but the idea is same, of worshipping demigods as a method of sacrifice in return to what they give us, right? So same thing as mentioned in chapter 3. Yeah.
So you also mentioned about the Vikarma, like whatever science and technology, whatever they are providing, it comes under this the Vikarma. So is there any scriptural reference for that, or is it mentioned in the Bhagavatam?
Not well. We can look in Bhagavatam if Srila Prabhupada makes any direct point about that. But if we study the Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, basically activities which go against the prescriptions of the scriptures, that by definition is Vikarma. So science starts by rejecting Vedic scriptures and to build our own system of knowledge. So I think by that definition it falls under Vikarma. So that was my understanding.
I had...
We can see that a lot of the techniques of modern medicine involve killing animals, actually sending spacecraft, like I think now India is sending a probe to Mars, an unmanned probe. This is actually against, we can see many references in the Puranas to that using mechanical, even Ravana was building a staircase to the heavenly planets, right? We can see that these things are rejected because there's an appropriate method of going to the higher planets, that through sacrifice or through yoga, not through this mechanical technology. So there's a lot of, we can find a lot of things that there's sinful activities involved in the methodology that they may be unaware of because they're not interested in the taking authority of following the rules of the scriptures, because they're essentially demonic. And
right. Yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
So please put the books back, and then we'll have Guru Puja in another couple of minutes. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Vando mui savadhana mate. Vando mui savadhana mate. Yara prasade bhai e bhavatori ajai. Jahara prasade bhai bhavatori ajai. Krishna prapti hai jahate. Krishna prapti hai jahate. Krishna prapti haya jahaite. Krishna prapti haya jahaite. Guru mukha padma vakya chitte te koriya kya. Guru mukha padma vakya chitte te koriya kya. Arana kari hamane asha. Arana kari hamane asha. Arana kari ho mane asha. Arana kari ho mane asha. Shri Guru charane rati aise uttama gati. Shri Guru charane rati aise uttama gati. Ye prasade pure sarva asha. 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 चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से. 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 दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित. दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित. प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते. भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते. प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते. भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते. Vede gaye jar charito, Vede gaye jar charito, Vede gaye jar charito, Vede gaye jar charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janar Bandhu, Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janar Bandhu, Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janar Bandhu, Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janar Lokanath Lokera Jivana, Lokanath Lokera Jivana, Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana, Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Ha ha Prabhu kar daya, deho more pad shaya, Prabhu kar daya, deho more pad shaya. Ha ha Prabhu kar daya, deho more pad shaya, Prabhu kar daya, deho more pad. Ebeja Gusukri Bhuvana, Ebeja Gusukri Bhuvana, Ebeja Gusukri Bhuvana, Ebeja Gusukri Bhuvana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Srila Guru Deva. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Srila Guru Deva. कीर्तन भी करते हैं इसके बाद कीर्तन भी करते हैं. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jaya Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jaya Mahaprabhu, Jaya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu Gaurang Mahaprabhu. Jaya Mahaprabhu, Jaya Mahaprabhu, Jaya Mahaprabhu, Jaya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev. Jaya Srila Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev. Jaya Srila Gurudev. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्रीमद् अष्टोत्तरशत His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhans Ashtottara Shat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय. प्रेम से बोलो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय. श्री श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय. श्री श्री नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय. श्री क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय. गंगा मैया यमुना मैया की जय. भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की जय. श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मूवमेंट की जय. श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल साइंटिफिक संकीर्तन मूवमेंट की जय. ऑल ग्लोरीज समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय. ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज. हरे कृष्ण. ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असेंबल्ड डिवोटीज. ऑल ग्लोरीज टू श्री श्री गुरु एंड गुरंग.
So, first of all, we would like to thank His Grace Vrindavana Priya Prabhu for leading today's morning Bhagavatam class on scientific approach to Krishna consciousness. So, please loudly chant Hari Bol for him. Hari Bol! So, as you all know, we are on the middle of the Sankirtan Miracle on Latham Street Festival. And today, quite a few devotees are going to San Francisco for the San Francisco Green Festival. So if you would like to join them for some time, please contact Sri Krishna Purushottam Prabhu or Malini Mataji or Haladara Rupa Prabhu, and they will be able to guide you as to where you can come and join them. And today also we have Chaitanya Charitamrita reading 24-hour festival at Balimadan Prabhu's house. So if you would like to come down and spend some time reading the nectar from Chaitanya Charitamrita, you are all welcome there. His address is 803 Beaver Creek Way, San Jose, and it starts from 12 noon and will go on till 12 noon tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And now we'll have prasadam prayer, and then we can have prasadam. Mahaprasade Govinde Namo Brahmane Vaishnave Salpa Punya Vitam Rajan Vishwaso Naivajayate Sharira Vidyajal Jadendriyata He Kal Jiva Phaile Vishaya Sagare Taro Madhye Jivayoti Lobhomoy Sudurmati Take Jeta Katina Sansare Krishna Bada Dayamoy Kari Bar Jiva Joy Swaprasadam Nadilo Vai Seina Amrita Pao Radha Krishna Guna Gavo Preme Jako Chaitanya Nitai Jai Nimai Jai Nitai Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavad Shri Mahaprasadam ki. So prasadam will be served in the small Balram unit. So please come there and take prasadam. Hare Krishna.
म्यूट कर